Welcome to another episode of Talking with WIT Kevin and Son. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. And through the power of your story, our mission is to uplift your voice of the everyday person, inspire and share stories and experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is hope, helping other people every single day. Today, we have a very special guest. He is a best-selling author of The Search for the Perfect Wave. He is married to Liz, and he has a couple of kids. He studies the art of peaceful living and has inspired more than 75,000 people throughout his lifetime. And adding to the many layers of this young man's story, he is adding presidential candidate to his story. As a friend, myself, and as a fan, we're going to learn how Sid McNairy goes from a peaceful living to putting his hat into the presidential race. And today I'd like to welcome my guest, Sid McNairy, presidential candidate of the United States. Welcome, Mr. President. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. And I appreciate you having me here for this conversation.
No problem. We are honored, and this is a privilege, for a little bitty measly podcast to have a presidential candidate on this platform. Throughout my whole lifetime, I was always taught that never in my lifetime would I would see a person in the White House that looks anything like me. That lie became a truth with Mr. Barack Obama. Then they said there'd never be a woman in the White House. And holding the second most powerful seat in this country, Kamala Harris, the first biracial African-American woman to sit in the most powerful seat in this land. And now we are opening up the doors for my friend, my brother, and just a really good person. And I'm going to tell you, this is a hard interview for me, because if I were interviewing anyone else, and I'm probably not going to treat you much different if this was another candidate, no matter what your gender or your race would be, there are a lot of questions. The issues of this country, we talk about anti-corruption and transparency. There's issues on gun control. There's issues on climate, the crisis, combating drugs and crime, counterterrorism, the disparity between the parties and our trade policies, and a hell of a lot more questions. And I've got to figure out some way in order to have a conversation with you that lasts about 25 to 35 minutes on my podcast without going 2 days trying to address every single issue from the many of my friends of all walks of life that have poured in questions that they want to ask you. So from the people, and I'm going to say from Kevin, why in the hell do you want to be president of these United States?
Most people, I think, have a journey that they're destined to be on. And it starts really young. And I've known that I was meant to bring peace to this world. And before the world comes our country, the land that we both were born on, where our feet sit now. And that's what it is about for me. I have a mission. My mission is to bring peace to the world. When I was asked if I would consider running, that's what came first was, all right, I have a mission. And I've known that at some point, the trajectory was going to be that this is what was needed, to make this run, to lead the country in a place that allows us to see peace at the forefront and to care for everybody. And that's what's missing, in my opinion. And that's what I know I bring to the table. So that's why, I have a mission. My mission comes first. This happens to be part of that mission.
You do know the conversation you're having right now from any of the presidents we had, from the very first one to the our present one. What you're talking about can't be had. There are many. Our country was built on blood and bones. There's no part of that conversation that had not had a conversation based on peace, that there hasn't been trauma and terror attached to that conversation. How are you going to bring peace to a country that basically profits from our own terrorism?
Well, it's time for people to be challenged to step into what's possible. And we as a country in the whole, as a world, the number one leading religion is Christianity. Now, people say they're Christian, but have they yet followed the Prince of Peace? And now, if we're going to truly stand up as people stepping into listening to our leaders, it's time for that. It's time. I mean, we've had moments where it's been fostered in this country, and now it's time for it to come to the forefront. So for me, the biggest thing is to help people be educated on what peace looks like. A lot of people think peace just looks like the 60s and hanging out and smoking marijuana. That's not it. That's not peace. Peace is something that resides inside of me, no matter what I need to face. And now, can I bring that peace that's in me and help someone else find it and live forward into their life, into their greatest? We have an opportunity to do that right now, or we perish. And personally, I see it as united. We come up here. That's what we're meant to do.
Well, I'm going to say this. COVID taught us one thing, that the conversation of being united is never going to happen. People, being vaccinated, anti-vax, or whatever the case may be, people that witnessed the fact that, what happened to George Floyd was propaganda by the media. People that even exist today that says that January 6th, their insurrection against our own country was something that was fabricated again by the media. We have two parties right now that are more divided than they've ever been before. And when I talk about where racism exists, racism started with our government. It was supported by our religion. It was trained and brainwashed into our souls and whatever. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm speaking from this. From what I understand, Democrats, they strive for equal opportunities for all Americans, regardless of sexual orientation, race, age, religion, or ethnicity, or whatever your choice may be. On the other side, there's a physical conservatism, resounding about tax, the rights to women's rights to their own bodies, the right to be married. What was I going to say? Right to be married within lateral sexual preferences or so forth, regardless of gender, growth of our economy, our healthcare system, and our beliefs and intervention in our government. These are all questions that you're going to be faced with. And are you prepared for that? Your family is going to be scrutinized. Are you prepared for that?
Yes, definitely. I've spoken with my family. I've embraced the fact that people want to bring their opinions. And everything that you've stated thus far, most of it's based on opinions. That's why people start arguing. I'm not here to argue anybody's opinion, because their opinions are their own. And that's a personal, and I don't even want to call it a truth, but that's a personal way of being. What I'm talking about when I talk about peace is seeking the truth of everything. And it's landing on that. And it's something that hasn't really been looked at. When we can look at and say, we'll use the pandemic, one that everybody relates to, and pretty much people have either be vaccinated or not, but everybody knew. I know one thing that everybody wanted. Everyone wanted it to end. That's peace. Everyone has an opportunity to, and that's where it shows up for me. We have the opinions of the Democrats, we have the opinions of the Republicans. And if you choose one or the other, you've already said that you're not for all people. No matter who it is, I'd love for somebody to defend how they can say, I am this or I am that, and I'm for everyone. Nope, you picked the side of the street to land on. And most people, we can look at it as Bloods and Crips. They pick their gang colors. I'm saying I'm standing for everyone. So it's not going to always look like the choices that need to be made is going to have everybody be happy. But I promise you, I'm standing for the people. That's why I'm running as an independent. And that's why I want to inject this into the system. See, now all of a sudden, people don't have to say that they're about peace and then show it. You can go back through history for me. I've been about peace. Yep, I coached football, but I taught people how to play the game and care for one another. 23 guys in the NFL and no one showed up in the press. Well, that's why, because we cared about not just ourselves in the moment, but we also cared about the other person on the other sideline. So I think that's part of it is helping people see how can we reach for the truth. The truth is everybody, I don't care on all those subjects you said, each and every side of the coin is looking to have a life of happiness, of peace, of joy, of love in their own way. Now, can we go stand for that and go look for the common ground that brings us all forward? And that's what I'm here to do.
All right. I'm going to ask this question before I get into the list of questions that have been sent to me. I'm going to ask this because I have a couple personal questions I'm going to ask you. In order to get on the ticket, you have to raise an enormous amount of money. In my eyes, every political candidate that raises all this money and whatever that doesn't get a chance to be in the final four, the final two, or the final one, all of that money could be put to better use. The other issue I have with politics is that most politicians spend most of their hard-earned money trying to badmouth the other candidate. And what that does for me, it distracts exactly what the issues are. And we're going to talk about issues in a couple of minutes. In the public sector, if I was to defame your character, I would end up in court. But as a politician, I can use AI, use your voice to say anything, whatever, and people believe that to be the truth. My grandfather always says that if you tell a big enough lie to the right people and the right people repeat that lie, it becomes the truth. I had not believed that to be a true statement until I watched a president serve 4 years in the office and watched that lie become most people's truth from some highly intelligent people. How are you going to come by or get by spending multiple millions of dollars that could be used for better resources than trying to get you elected or get anyone elected? And how are you going to present yourself that's going to be different from slandering another candidate or candidates and defending yourself? How are you going to go about that?
Well, the first is my track record is sitting here being somebody that helps everyone that comes into my life find a deeper state of peace, a personal betterment of their own life, right? So that's who I am. That's at the core. That's how I stand in the world, is to continue to help people live to their highest in every way. So what that looks like for me is the money that's raised that comes in to politics for me will mean that it's going to give me the ability to go and be with people. I don't think there's a candidate out there right now that goes and sits with everybody, that gives people an opportunity to come and meet with them one-on-one, to connect. Now, that's not going to be possible with every person in the US. There's a lot of people here. Yet, that's who I am. I want to sit with people. AI can't be me in person. Can't do it. Can AI go fake something? Sure. Now come ask me the questions. I want to make sure people have that space of an opening, to come back and eventually do this live with you, where people get to know this is really Sid. There's certain things that AI just doesn't do. It doesn't respond automatic. It's not going to be sitting in your face physically so far. We haven't cloned people yet. So all those things, that's the way for me. That's my way. You know what it's like. You played football, to be in person, to sit there with the energy of the coach, with your teammates, to be in the huddle. That's what I want to do. We got a bigger team to look for right now. It's team humanity, and I want to bring us together. And that looks like really pulling that in that space, And then you asked the second question. Can you repeat that?
The second question is the gerrymandering that goes back and forth. In the event that you become a political opponent, they spend thousands and millions of dollars trying to find something in your past in order to discredit you, to distract the registered voters or the people that will be registering in order to support you or someone like you from the actual facts and the truth and the issues. Now, with AI, I mean, you can't say that it can't put words in your mouth, because the actors that are on strike with the writers union now I can take 30 seconds of your voice and I can make your conversation say anything I want to, and people will see your lips moving and not be able to sync it together and say that could be the truth. I know every last one of us, and there's not a person listening to this that doesn't have something in their past that they do not want to come up. Or there may be someone that you may have a misunderstanding, will come up and say that, you are the worst person in the world, you did this, or whatever the case may be. Someone asked me, you should run for president one day. And I said, something, I suffer from a traumatic head injury. I don't remember half the crap I went through, but in the event that someone blaming, I'm going to say, look, I'm not the person I was yesterday. I'm a better person today. I'm going to move on. With that said, how are you going to handle the bashing that's going to go back on? Are you going to participate? And how are you going to handle the truth when it comes up from your past?
Well, my past is my past, and I don't have a problem talking about it. I mean, I've been married a couple times, and I'm here to tell you, I wasn't the same husband I am with Liz. You've seen me and Liz, and Liz can vouch for the person that I am, and people can see me all over the place. That's why it's got to be in person. For me, if I was ever accused of something I said in the locker room, I will own it. And I've also elevated from those things that I've done in my past. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on needing to defend my character, because my character is who I am right now. I know that. Yet at the same time, in that space, I'm willing to say, okay, let's look at it. And now we're moving forward. What am I doing right now? So I think that's important. When it comes to defamating someone else's character, I don't need to do that. That's not the space. That's never been how I was raised to coach and recruit in football. I'm a ball coach. That comes through for me. When I get fired up, I'm gonna get fired up. When I'm at peace, I'm at peace. It just is what it is. I'm exactly who you see in the moments that you see me. And so I always went in. When I recruited these guys and beat huge schools to get the players to come play for me, it was because they knew I was selling what I am. And therefore they got to choose if they wanted that. Now, everybody else usually comes out and they have something negative to say, and it's usually because it's a reflection of who they are. So I don't have anything to say about these people, yet I will say this. I am the person that's ready for this, 100%. I know how to lead. I know how to sit in a boardroom. I know how to raise things up, and we will continue to move forward because people will be inspired to come together and care for one another.
And I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I'm a personal witness of someone, especially in this country, because they're going to judge. I got to be honest with you. They're going to judge you and scrutinize you because of the color of your skin harder than anyone else running for office. And the reason why I know this, because I personally had an acquaintance with a past president. I knew his first wife. When the second wife was being prepped, I knew where she was hiding. Paparazzi, while I was living in New York, offered me a large sum of money in order to tell me where the secret was. And I refused to do it for the simple fact I said, I'm going to be in a position one day where someone's going to question my integrity or my character. And since it's public knowledge, neither one of them are in question right now. I also, had an opportunity to meet the third that eventually became the first lady, while the second marriage was just kind of cooling off. And I knew that situation and so forth. So I know when America looks at you and they scrutinize you for being a good human being and living life and learning through the process of life, I want you to be honest with yourself and look in the mirror. Is that we all have made decisions that are not popular to the masses. And we've all based our political agenda based on our own biases. And if they're biased towards your past life versus who you are today, it's like, I'm going to agree with you. It's a reflection of you. So before we get to the issues, I want to go ahead and let everyone know how they can support your campaign, how you can be reached, and so forth. So if you don't mind, how do people get in touch with you, and how do they support you?
Well, definitely come on over to sidmcnairy.com and you can join in the movement. And that's the big thing. This is a movement. And this is everybody's campaign. This isn't Sid McNairy needs to be president. This is, I'm running for the people, and the people need a voice that says enough's enough. How can we come together on all fronts? So sidmcnairy.com, and you can find Sid McNairy on all social media platforms, unless there's something new that started yesterday. Thread started, but you can still find Sid McNairy on there too.
All right. So we're going to go through some of the issues that are present or prominent within the questions of the people that are in my circle. And first, issues on social justice. How does Mr. President today, how do you address social justice? And I will tell you, as a person of color, no matter what state you're in, whatever, we know that justice is just for us. It was originally created in order to enslave our people, and it's still as a system, because of the penal system is short of help. It incarcerates minorities faster than any other race. How do you address that?
Well, first, there's a lot of issues to talk about just in that in itself. You mentioned the prison system and how people are almost bred to go there, right? Like that's happening in people of color's path. Now, there's a lot to that. There's a lot to educating people beforehand. There's something to a big topic for me is mental health. I think one of the biggest places that mental health begins to be an issue is in the prison system. And so we have to address that way before it becomes that factor. Now we have things that are already in it. There's already a discrepancy on who gets, we'll say, in trouble over what issue. That's part of it. So there's a lot to that question for me. One of them is looking at how does our police system work. I look at the fact that I think differently. That's the main reason for why I'm where I am. And when I look at the police department, part of the situation is we only have one side for that coin. Everywhere, how many other places are we? McDonald's has Burger King, Walmart has Target. They're all doing better because they have to do better because there's something else competing with that. For me, I see there needing to be another balance to that equation to bring things into balance. And that has been done in Detroit. You can go see where they have a police department, then they also have almost the Promise Keepers there. And I think that's important to make sure those things come into balance so that we can you can't balance scales if it's only one side to a scale.
So are you telling me that justified immunity across the board is something that you endorse?
Say that again.
Justified immunity. It basically it allows an officer that believes he is doing the right thing within the law to be immune to personal prosecution, economic prosecution, and so forth, because he believes he's acting in the right side of the law. So basically, it makes him immune to the same laws that you and I, for the same crimes to be committed. If he unlawfully takes someone's life, makes a mistake or whatever, he is immune from prosecution.
And so are you asking if I believe in that?
I'm asking you to support it. There's candidates that have been trying to get this on the book. My fraternity brother, John Lewis, he died trying to get this on the books, and for some reason it couldn't get in. Obama couldn't get it passed. Tim, whatever his name is on the Republican side, couldn't get it passed. There are people been trying to pass this, and because they do not want this to be law on all 50 states, because it would create havoc, and maybe there's police officers that will probably not be police officers if this was on the table, but there are a lot of lives, and if you have not witnessed it within the last 2 or 3 years, which with George Floyd and everyone else, if it had not been for videotape and the country being in turmoil the way it is, those officers would probably have gotten off. If you look at Breonna Taylor and the situation and whatever, shooting an innocent person, I can go on and on about this, but our government, or our big brother, has turned a blind eye only for the simple fact that the prophets or the people that control our government, and I'll say this is my opinion, so I speak for myself, on the people that control our government or the people that control our economy, and both sides of the political party support wherever the money's coming from. Why are you going to be different?
Well, I'm going to be different because I'm different, hands down.
You saying you can't be bought?
Oh, definitely not. And that's not a factor for me. See, the difference is most people they're running because they want to. I'm running because I made a commitment to the thing that's bigger than everybody. Whatever you want to call it. You want to call it God, you want to call it spirit, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. I made that commitment. I know that when I step out of my alignment, my body shuts down. So I don't get to do that. I don't get that luxury of being talking out of both sides of my mouth. You will hear me talk about peace. You will see me stand for peace. You will continue to see me in that way. So, I look at people right now. They say one thing, and as soon as it backfires for them, you can look at the state I live in, Florida. As soon as it backfires, they want to claim something else, act like there's something else. You will see Sid consistently. My true north is standing for peace. When you brought this question forward, at first, how it sounded for me was that you were asking if I was standing with the police officers who are doing injustice as if they should get off. And I will stand on no, absolutely not. If someone is doing an injustice, then that's causing harm to other people, they've got to stand for that. There's got to be something, there's got to be an accountability. And that's why I'm saying maybe it's time to look at having two departments that govern the people, that move around, because right now, in that instance, when we're talking police officers, there's one. And if they step out of line, if the other police officers don't do their part of it, we got a problem. A lot of people, and I'm going to piggyback this into the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, and gun laws. A lot of people are like, no, we should take all the guns off the street. Well, you're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. We got too many guns floating in hands of people, and we have a military that's armed. If the military is the only one with guns, then how does the person sitting at their home ever protect themselves? It doesn't. So the same thing can be looked at in that way. Now, I do feel that we go back to what I said before, mental health, making sure everyone is stable to stand in for everyone. And if we don't get that right, that's where we're missing it. We got to get to the root of the problem, not keep looking at this surface part of it.
Well, I'm scratching my head for a reason. When you said about, we're going to talk about gun control, we might as well go ahead and talk about that right now. The Second Amendment, when you talk about the Second Amendment, you have to understand what the Second Amendment was based upon. It was not based on the average citizen protecting itself from a neighbor breaking into the house or whatever the case may be. You've got people that are walking around with guns that have never fired at another human being. So chances are the average citizen, when they pull the trigger, is going to end up eliminating the life of a neighbor instead of the person that's a perpetrator. The other thing is, too, when you talk about gun control, it's like, I'm all for people having guns. I lost a godson to his cousin, 12 years old, found a gun in the house, pulled the trigger, playing cowboys and Indians, and he is no longer existing. I used to collect guns. I no longer do it anymore because I don't need a gun. I'm never going to be in a situation to where if someone wants something from me, I'm just going to give it to them because I want to go home to my family. The other thing is, you look at the mass shootings. We have had more mass shootings and people standing on the rights of gun control and being shot up by people that have legally purchased machine guns and that were normally military weapons or whatever, and have killed children. I'm personally connected to a young lady that was on my podcast that her son in Texas was sitting in the room next door while the classroom was being slaughtered by someone else. When you talk about gun control, it's hard for any mother or parent or any administrator that had to sit through that tragedy to say that we can justify everyone having a gun. How do you address those people that have buried loved ones, children, and so forth, and saying that politically this is the right thing to do?
Well, I still go back to the mental health of those people. Before the gun doesn't pick up itself. So we can sit here and say that guns are the problem, but guns don't pick up themselves. They just don't. No matter what size gun it is, no matter what size missile it is, Guns and missiles and arms don't fire themselves. It's on the people. We've got to help people. We've got to get to the root of it. People are the problem and the source of all these issues you talked about. All
Do you believe in regulation? When you go through and look at the statistics, and a lot of people, and I'm not a fancy news reporter, a lot of people have looked at the fact that Australia instituted registration of guns and like driver's license and so forth, and the mass murders that have been happening there have went from numbers to zero. Having guns regulated, having people having to be recertified every single year and whatever. When you talk about gun control, it's a right to have a gun, but if at some point in life you become legally irresponsible to own a gun, your license to own that weapon should be taken away. I'm a firm believer that there are certain weapons that should be in the general public's hands, and not all weapons should be accessible to people. Do you have a feeling on that, sir?
Well, I definitely can track what you're saying and believe in what you're saying. And no, I don't own a gun. I don't. Why? Because I'm the peace guy. So people come to me, and that's the interaction we have. You can go to Costa Rica. They don't have an army. Costa Rica, when's the last time they've been in a war? They don't have an army. Now, are we going to get like Costa Rica here? Likely not, because
But
of the way.
I'm going to tell you, Sid, from you look at Costa Rica, and we're looking at that, the drug control and the murders in Costa Rica and so forth. It's not a good point. When you talk about gun control, because all the criminals are out there. What I'm talking about here in the United States, you're running for president of the United States. And what I'm talking to you, there's a system that other countries have employed that is working. And for some reason, and I know that politically, the NRA has a lot of political clout. All right. You got to take a position on that if you're going to be president of the United States, because, I walk out every single day of my house not being guaranteed that I'm going to come back. And my biggest fear is law enforcement. I've been pulled over more in my entire life than probably the average citizen, no matter what car I drive, no matter what neighborhood I've been in, have never been cited for a ticket. And probably me saying this now, I'll probably get a ticket for something, just based on the color of my skin and being in the wrong location at the wrong time. And when I say the wrong location, is no one believes I live in the neighborhood I live in. And I've been pulled over by cops less than a half mile away from my house with my driver's license saying I lived in a certain neighborhood, and they said I would. It can't be true.
So to get to your question, yes, people should be regulated, just like driving a car. No different. The car is a lethal weapon, right? In the hands of the wrong person, the person drinking, DUIs, lose their license. Has to be that way. I mean, people show that they aren't able to handle the responsibility. Yes. And I will say at the same time, you also need to be able to protect yourself if that were needed. You choose not to have a gun in your house. I get that. I choose the same thing. We have the right to choice. God gave us that. Now we want to take that away from people. I don't think that's okay. That doesn't work for me. Is there a way for us to do it responsibly? Yes. And everybody has been given the right to choose. We have to choose wisely on everything that we do. And I can't sit here and say, remove the guns. That's not where I'm at. I definitely would not say that, because we still have guns in the world.
All right. Well, this is another topic that we're always going to have this in the world. Women.
Oh,
you have a mother, you have a sister, you have a wife, you have nieces, you have cousins or whatever that are all female. When we talk about issues of gender, we talk about issues of identifying gender, but the rights of women in certain states are being taken away. The rights of women in certain other states are being questioned. Your state of Florida, Texas, not great states. And that's my opinion. I'll say that again. That's my opinion. And a lot of women are going to know is that, this is going to cost people's lives based on the decisions of our grandfather.
We can make, because I know we only got 30 minutes. Damn right. I already said it. God gave everybody the right to choice. Women, what makes us men think that we should control whether or not a woman has a right to choose? They have a right of choice, period. Exclamation point. Next topic, because really
All right.
there's
Fair,
nothing.
fair housing. Banking systems, our financial systems have been very creative in order to keep redlining alive. Boston Public is being bought up by certain genders in Boston, and is almost making it impossible for people that are melanated. When I say melanated, people that are not white, in order to get loans. I had a funny experience 2 days ago. I met a couple that were white. They actually said they were being discriminated in the Adirondacks because they could not get a loan because they were white and the community was all Jewish. And it's the first time I've ever heard a white person ever said they were discriminated. Redlining, no matter where you are, no matter what color your skin is, if you can afford to live in a neighborhood, I think you should have the opportunity to be as successful as possible and provide housing and a lifestyle for your children based on the way you perceive life. But our financial institutions and the way it was bred to keep ghettos alive and keep the suburbs prospering. So how do we fix and create fair housing for all?
That's a lot to uncover. And
I'll make it simple, make it illegal for banking situations or institutions to create these programs, put them out of business. But that's just me if I was running for office. It's not a line that says it's complicated and whatever. It has to be illegal. You talk about being president and being a person for all people. Okay. You can't have it both ways and have people divided and not provide opportunity for all people if you allow an institution to manipulate and thrive and reword a criminal act in order for profit.
no doubt about that. And at the same time, we as consumers get to choose, period. We get to choose. The person that we're consuming a product from gets to choose how they make the product. It goes back to education for me. Educating people to make choices. See, if I stop banking with this person for whatever reason, and I educate other people, and we all start to demand that the people that we are ultimately employing demand that they move the way that's appropriate for all, we have the power. It's time for the people to get the power back. We can sit here and say, oh, go make this law. Well, that hadn't worked. That hadn't worked. Making laws has not worked. It's up to people to start being powerful enough to say, I can make this choice. This product isn't moving the way I want to move for all people. And stop being so divided in our own mentality, then we get things back together. So I'm going to go back to that. We got to start being united. We got to be united on the choices that we make. We got to be united on how we're governing each other, how we want to stand. We've got to keep going back to, all right, are we doing what's best for everyone? We're doing what's best for everyone. And if everyone gets on board with that, all this other stuff has to be eliminated. If a place is selling guns to people that shouldn't have guns, then it's time for us to say, okay, how are we going to get everybody to make it different, to stop supporting? Because those same people making guns, selling guns, doing this, that, or the other, they also have other products. What are we supporting that's actually supporting the things that we don't want? And I think that that's more important for us to educate people so that people aren't blindly walking into everything. Right now, we have in certain neighborhoods, we have fast food everywhere. Well, it's still being bought. When are we going to actually say, I have this power, I'm going to use this power? On all levels. And that to me is a bigger thing for me. That's the root of it, is to get people to be educated enough to step into what is possible. We can, jump into climate change. We could go into all these different things. They're all go back to that. We are being dumb as human beings. And now it's time for us to say, okay, let's be smart. Let's care for one another. Let's bring peace forward. We have to do that by the people that are leading us have to inspire the people that are just listening to be
But,
that way.
but see, and I hate to interrupt you. That's all fine and good when you say it. Sounds very pretty and whatever. But I've spoken to people that have actually sat in the White House as senators, state representatives, and so forth. And they basically said the truth of it is that every single political candidate runs on an agenda in order to help other people. They want to run on an agenda that is going to help change. They get voted in based on that agenda, but they spend their whole entire career trying to get 50% of what they committed to for the people passed through legislation. Because, the biggest problem that Barack had is trying to get things through his own party. And when you look at the fact that, we've got people that, your last president has placed in Supreme Court that supports a social bias for people and unjustified laws for all people and whatever. It is virtually impossible when we have people that, and I say this all the time, we need to stop voting in our grandparents into offices in order to support what's right for humanity, because most old people are so disconnected to what reality is. They don't know what they're talking about. They're so disconnected with the community. The only time they ever kiss a baby is they're trying to get elected. They can care less about that baby, but the issue is we have issues that are greater than profit, and we still put profit over humanity. How is that going to change with you as current president?
Oh, that's my track record says I put people first.
But you have not been elected to a public office.
Jimmy Carter and I'm
had
still going to stand that way, regardless. Like I look at, we can sit here and say, oh, it's the person that was in office's fault. Well, who the hell put them in office? They got voted in office. People have to say, I am voting this way because enough's enough. And if either we're going to do that, which means it isn't just about the presidency, it's about me aligning to the people that will stand this way as well, so that it has to be more than the president. It's our country, and we have to demand something different. If we're not going to demand something different, if we want something different, we'll keep getting what we have. And so, yes, what I say, I'd sit here and say that I'm going to vote against harm of people, and then I could get in office and something could be weird in office. I don't know what happens to these people, because some of them seem like they changed on a dime.
Right.
So now that looks like we have to demand that going into it. We all have to step up. It's everybody's responsibility.
All right, I'm going to ask you, since you brought this up, and there's a couple of other issues, and we could talk all day long. We'll probably have to come back and revisit this again. Your thoughts on illegal immigration and how do we combat that? There are a lot of people in this country, legal, that we should support. There are a lot of people in this country that have come over here with ulterior motives for profit, for drugs, and so forth. And this leads into the same question is human trafficking. How are we going to combat that? Are these two issues that are going to be ignored or addressed?
Well, human trafficking, one of my good friends is Jason Cisneros, and a group of guys that go and do an incredible job. The movie Freedom is depicted off of part of one of their journeys. And so that's a big thing. Again, going back to caring about people. We've got to do a better job of that. We're not caring about people if there's people still getting taken on the side of the road, people down in Orlando and taking their kids and doing all these things. No, that's not good enough. We got to do a better job. For whatever reason, somehow there's been a blind eye turned to that. It has to be better. The part that you asked before that was
Immigration. How do we
immigration.
combat that?
You know,
Legal.
I've been studying history because I really want to step in this in a way that says, okay, I'm standing for all the people. And Hamilton, who was George Washington's right-hand man, was an immigrant. Our country has been founded on not the people that actually lived here first, the way we run the country now. So to me, we have to do a good enough job evaluating why people are coming, making sure it is accessible for people, and also preventing people from just coming that may be coming with ulterior motives than lifting the country up. So for me to say how that would be done right in this moment, not going to happen, because there's a lot to be evaluated. There's a lot for my team to look at and help me figure out, okay, what's the path forward? Yet we can't just turn people away from this country when this country's been built on people that weren't from here.
All right. Sid, I want to thank you. There's a lot of other issues that we can talk about. We can talk about foreign policies, and we'll do that another time. We can talk about education, which I should talk about right now, because the reason why I want to talk about education, because there are states that are trying to eliminate a certain culture, and I'll say it, Black history, from our books in Florida and Texas are leading the way in there. We can talk about, how, voting is being separated. We have states that should only have one representative, that have multiple representatives based on the color, red or blue, in those subjects. But I want to close with this issue on education. How do we address the conversation based on eliminating and educating a history? And it's not very pretty with Black history in this country, but it's a story that needs to be told. And how do we combat our children being educated on the truth of our history, both positive and negative?
Well, first, I've been studying history. And our history has not been told. I don't know, we put it on a percentage, it's probably less than 50% is true. So there's that. First and foremost, getting to the truth of it. One thing that's taught often is about slavery. Yeah, I just recently learned how Black people owned Black slaves. White people owned white slaves. I know I wasn't taught that in school. So those things we have to look at, all right, what's the true history, first and foremost. Then, after history is taught, when are we going to start teaching forward motion? See, we can keep programming someone's brain on the past, and we repeat the past. It hasn't been changed yet. So that's what we're doing. We program the brain, the thoughts become things. We see it over and over and over again in a loop, and it looks a little different today because slavery looks like the prison system where they're working for, I don't know, they may be working for $1 now, but it used to be 62 cents. I don't know what it is now. You can look at many other aspects of how it's structured from the top to the bottom, and you can look at who has the most money to who has the least money. Even in these things that we think people are getting rich, who has the most is one way, who has the least is another way. So all of those things, how are we going to move forward now? So we can teach history. And for me, history is worth for the lessons of the past so that we don't no longer repeat the past. So now, when are we going to start to educate people to think differently so that we can move forward from this conversation that has been all of my life and all of my dad's life, all of your life, all of the lives of the people that have lived here in this country? The same conversations are still going. We don't even know where we're going. It's like having a GPS and saying, I'm going to go. Well, where the GPS doesn't go, it wouldn't go. You got to have a point. Where are we going? What's the direction? Where are we moving as a country? And then we can say, okay, is what we are doing now, is it supporting where we're going? So when it comes to looking at how we should teach Black history, we got to start teaching freaking history. Like really get to what is the history. And now, did we learn from it so that we can do something different that elevates everybody? I have friends on every spectrum, on every color. I am, as you can see, I am mixed. So anybody I don't like, I'm like not liking something in me. So I don't get that luxury. I don't get that because I've been in situations on both sides of the coin. I've been in white environments, I've been in Black environments, I've been in Jewish environments. And the last time I checked, they're either white or Black. Jewish is a religion for me. I always grew up as that was a religion. We have these conversations going on that make no sense to me. And it's time for us to start thinking differently so we can have something different when we move forward. For me, it's about rise. Real impact supports everyone. Where are we going? Stop going backwards. My mom used to get so mad at us for that. When my dad and I would go back to the same old conversation, the same old problem that I brought into the house or that he got upset about or in whatever way. And she'd be like, when are you all going to go forward? See, all these things that we want to say are history. That history, you can't show me history. Show me history. You can't. You just can't. You go get a film, but you don't know what that really looks like. You can't show me history. You're showing me thoughts and opinions, and it's time for us to move forward. What's really happening is happening out there right now. How do we do better? That's what we got to figure out. How do we do better and move forward? Now, yes, I think it's important for the youth to know where their parents came from. Don't repeat the past. That's it. Let's go forward. If the past is serving us, bring it forward. If it's not, shift and let's do something else. So the conversation for me that people are stuck on, that's because they're stuck in that reality. And it's time for us to figure out how can we move forward. That's so important, especially for people of color. Part of what I think happens with people is they are stuck and put on something, so they stay stuck there. Yet everybody else is moving forward.
I appreciate you giving us that share and your perspectives. I know I do want to have you come back because I want to talk about education, because there's a lot of teachers that are in crisis with our current school system. The Leave No Child Behind has did just what it said. They're leaving a lot of children behind. Our education system is programmed in order for profit and test taking. It is not to create a product that is productive after high school. We're basically entry-level managers and employees for entry-level positions at Walmart and other retailers and fast food joints or whatever. We're not graduating children with a purpose. I gave a presentation, spoke at an 8th grade commencement, and basically every 8th grader that's graduated from 8th grade will graduate with the same diploma in the 12th grade as they've gotten from the 8th grade. They'll learn nothing outside of, and the whole conversation we'll talk about next is college and college debt and so forth. I'd like to go ahead and have you back and talk about those conversations. Mr. President, and I'm addressing you that because I've got my fingers crossed that the world is ready for change and that we can abandon the division between parties and unite us as human beings and for the betterment of all people. Those people that are sitting out there that vote based on their economics, you have to realize is that when the planet is gone, so are we. So no matter how much money you may have in the bank or how many things that you own or whatever, when the bees stop pollinating plants and plants stop growing and the air is not being filtered by the trees that surround us that we keep tearing down in order to build these mini mansions and so forth, and we're left on a deserted island, well, understand that money cannot buy you life, but it can cost you your life. So with that said, I've asked this of a majority of all my guests. If you had one ask and you can have one thing come true, and you probably have a whole list, Sid, because you're a good person. And as you know, people listening to this will say that, you know, Are they still friends at the end of this? I hope that we are, but I had to ask the questions because I don't want to see anyone abuse you. And I want people to listen to you. It's the reason why I had you on my podcast early on when I put this podcast together and I showcased people should know. The two things I said I didn't want to talk about was politics and religion. And I know everything about life is about two things, chance and choice. We choose the position we stand in and we take the chances of what choices we make and where we're standing. And right now I'm standing with you. So I'm going publicly and saying that I'm going to endorse Sid McNairy, and I'm going to support him. You have an open seat to come back here and address any issues. For those of you that are in the media, I'm going to say be fair, get off your own agenda, and look out for the best interests of the people and do your freaking job. I'm not a professional reporter and whatever. I'm a good human being. And these are issues that I care about. And these are issues when I'm asking people that they care about. Sid, if you had one ask, and you can have someone make that dream come true. And the reason why I'm asking this, because I'm one of few podcasters, and I think Oprah is the only person I know that's ever put this out there, is that the people that support me and that follow me, they're not in large numbers, but they're people that have a higher call to action. They don't drive by an accident, they stop and help. So if any of my listeners are listening to this and want to go ahead and support this young man, I'm asking you to be a person of a higher calling and support change. Sid, what would your ask be?
My ask is that people care for one another and demand that of those that are in front of you, to demand that our leadership shows up for the betterment of all people. Everyone in this country, everyone in this world, we're all connected. And so my ask once again is for people to care for one another, which looks like supporting this movement, sidmcnairy.com, the Rise movement, real impact supports everyone. And that looks like doing whatever you can to make the world a better place.
Well, Mr. President, Sid McNairy, I appreciate you coming on the show. And for those of my listeners, I know we have covered a lot of information. We haven't gotten all the information. There is far too many issues regarding our politics and our world that we live in order to cover within a 35, 45-minute podcast. But I hope at some point we've shared something that interests you. Hopefully we've had a conversation that may change your point of view of where you sit, to think beyond just you and your family, to help humanity. I hope at some point that we presented you in a situation that will say that change is needed and that you be part of the change that you want to be. And I hope at some point we touched a part in your heart that will allow you to hug a neighbor that you normally walk by, to quit gossiping, to quit putting people down, to understand that mental health is an issue that will eventually affect every last one of us at some point. At some point, that crime can be controlled by those of you that understand that sometimes providing an opportunity and hope will put a time card in someone's hand versus a gun, because helping people every day, providing an opportunity, will have people take care of their property, their friends, their neighborhood, and so forth. And when you look at the fact that AI may be replacing 45%, people that were never desperate or made poor decisions will start being out of desperation, make poor decisions, and will end up part of the statistic that we're trying to avoid. So let's avoid the destruction of mankind, and let's work on the reconstruction of humanity. So with that said, if you like what I've heard, like what you've heard, please go to RMK Productions and Network and join us on our YouTube page and subscribe and follow. I'll ask you to do that. If you would like to be a guest, or maybe even sit on the show and talk to Sid himself and ask some questions, go to info@rmkproductions.org, and you're more than welcome to sit in here with me. Send me questions, do whatever you want. But I just want to thank everyone, and thank you, Sid, for coming in. I know the seat got a little hot for you. I want to thank Liz, and I hope the family and friends are prepared. I believe in you. I love you like a brother, and I hope the world is open to change. So with that said, my grandfather always said, when you get to a point that you can help someone else, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we'll fade to black and we're out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.